Okay, what are we at here? Okay, 10:37, December 30th. Probably I've got, I don't know, for a couple more hours since I worked a couple hours maybe yesterday afternoon, but did some other things. So still working on the dashboard, and playing with these names a lot because I'm trying to look at these as just somebody who is looking at this and wants to make sense of what I've done here. So, one of our goals is clarity. If we look up here, informative dashboard, where's my, here it is. Informative metrics with a high feedback loop is one of the values that we're trying to have. And so we'll have some sort of window that you can open up down here, a drop down that opens up and kind of provides a detailed explanation. Maybe we'll put the explanation on mouse over. I think we might do that also. So we'll see how that works. I'm not sure how that will work with mobile, but we'll probably have some kind of drop down box that also explains what you're looking at here. And so I put my weight in today. So I'm always trying to show how this works and why I think this is important. So I'm not on any kind of strict diet or anything like that. I just try to regulate my eating, when I eat, things like that. So winter for me is a really low activity time, and that really came out in my data. But what I want is a lot of feedback. So my daily weight change was 0. That means that from yesterday to today, nothing changed. My average weight went down a little bit. That's a 7-day rolling average. So by putting in a number that was the same as yesterday, it did lower my average a bit. So we're in the green there. I am 0.89 pounds below my 7-day rolling average. That's a good number, and so that means whatever I'm doing, it's in the right direction. My weekly change is up 0.28 pounds from last week, so that's not good, but we're headed in the right direction. So we don't get a point for that. So each one of these kind of counts as a point. If it's I'm probably going to have some gauges in here that are blue that don't really count as points. They're just informative, but the green, yellow, red ones all can add to your score. For the month, I'm up 0.28 pounds. Actually, it says WHIP, so I actually haven't tied this in. This is a new metric that I need to add to the back end. My average weekly weight change is minus 0.16. It gives you an idea how much you're losing on average. So even though I'm up 0.28, my average, if you take 7 rolling averages of this weekly weight change. So a weekly weight change is like my average today compared to my average 7 days ago. This is an average of that number over 7 days. So this gives you a much better example, and this would basically say I'm losing 0.2 pounds a week. And this is going to be monthly. This is work in progress, not there. And then even or better. So this metric is how many days in the last 7 were you even? Was this daily weight change even or better than even? So 2. So that's not very good. Of course, I think the last 2 days out of 7 were that number. And then the same thing for last month. How many days in the last month were you even? And there's some thresholds there to kind of give you some color indicators and points. So working all that. So as I'm doing this, I'm coming up with better names that make more sense. And these new names are not anything like the column names back behind them. And we're early enough in the project that we can go back and change those column names, and that's what I'm doing. So I'm basically doing these alter tables and adding the new column, then updating it with the old data from the old column, and eventually we'll drop the old column. I don't want to drop it yet because then my code won't compile. So now we got to go through the code and make these changes also, and then go through the UI and make these changes. And we want to be really careful about doing that because this kind of stuff is really messy and you don't want to do this very often. But like I said, we're early enough in the project that it makes sense because I've added something called software characteristics to my to-dos here. Kind of drives our to-dos. So we want value, features, and software characteristics to drive what we're doing. And one of those is having a maintainable code base. Now, I was already myself getting confused between the mapping between columns and these values. So I thought, And often when I look at the columns, a week after I've written it, I'm like, what is that? And how do I get that number? So we want to try to make sense. So we're matching the column names very similar to these metrics. And we'll go back and fix that in our schema file. And so right now we're adding those columns in to the create table statement. We don't need to modify anything that's running, so we're just going to kind of do a manual forced change here. We're going to basically blow all the data away and rebuild the table and put the data back. We'll save it off to a temp table, and I'll just do that manually in SQL Developer. And then we'll get everything baseline up and running, and then we should be able to install from scratch and get right back to where we were. If we ever wanted to, it shouldn't have any differences. So the way this system works is we have this in ArcSQL, which is a dependency for doing development here. We have these functions like does table exist, and we put it in a PL SQL block. And so if the table does not exist, then we create it. Otherwise, what's going to happen is what you would do for an upgrade is if you added a column to the create table statement, you would also add a block down here that checks for the existence of that column and adds it if it doesn't exist. And that's how we have a single file for the most part that contains most of the objects in our schema. There's times when you want to add triggers and things like that, and you maybe need to add some other files to your install process just to kind of do things in the right order. We also include these drop statements, which can get parsed by a shell script and create an uninstall script for you. Actually, it's these uninstalls. It's the uninstall right here, this line, and I'll be showing that some other time when I get through. And at the end of all this, what I'll do is I'll take this structure and I'll upload kind of an example to GitHub and walk through how to create an app, some sort of app in a day or something like that. So that's the goal there. So that's where I'm at, and we should have most of the day to work on this, and hopefully we'll kind of be done with the first cut of the dashboard. Another thing I want to do for the dashboard is I think I'm going to lay out a format where I've seen where it's kind of like explanation on the left and then chart on the right. So chart will take up at least half to 2/3 of the screen, and then kind of an explanation of what you're looking at on the left. Again, trying to keep the information content high and people easily understand what they're looking at. All right, so that's what we got. We'll talk to you later.